everyone, welcome back. My name's Diana. This is my channel Bookish Di, and today we're doing something a little bit different. So I had been thinking recently about books that were really formative to me and thinking about things that I liked and what I liked about them. And I will be doing a video on that further down the road, but it also got me thinking about the fact that there's so much great YA being published right now, and it makes me really sad that I missed out on that. So I was the YA age range right when the boom was just about to get started. So I was in high school when the original Twilight books were coming out, and I wasn't really a Twilight fan, so I didn't read them, but that kind of kickstarted a lot of the really great YA that we're seeing now, because that's really, like, that combined with Harry Potter, problematic as the authors and the content of the books may be, in both cases, those really showed the popularity of the genre and the fact that kids were willing to read these types of books. Like, speaking from someone who read Tamara Pierce growing up, I saw her books evolve from being relatively short books to being longer and having more room to have this kind of more complex characters or complex themes. And I'm honestly really jealous of the fact that there's so much great books out by people of color, by queer authors, neurodiverse authors, and it got me thinking, you know, what are some books that I wish I would have had access to when I was younger that I've read and loved? So I decided that today's video is going to be the top 5 books that I wish I had access to when I was in high school. The first book on this list is Huntress by Malinda Lo. So this is actually a prequel to her first novel, Ash, which I do own as well, but this was actually the first Malinda Lo book that I read. So this came out when I was finishing up college, and I had seen this book at the local one of my local bookstores, and I thought that it looked really interesting. I heard that it was queer, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy this and read it, and I really loved it. So this book centers on 2 girls, Cade and Tayson, who are on a quest to the realm of the fairy queen to bring balance to their kingdom. And what I love about this book is not just the relationship between Cade and Tayson, but it's also a quest book, and it's also trying to bring the world back into balance. And when I was in high school, I didn't really see a lot of these types of books that had queer girls that were Asian inspired. And so this was this was just, it hit me when I initially read it. And I have become a huge Malinda Lo fan since. I own almost all of her books, and I can trace it back to reading this when I was finishing up college. And I'm so glad that I grabbed this book, because it really showed me just what was happening in the genre, because I hadn't really been reading YA when I was in college. And so just seeing the types of books that were just starting to be published. So yeah, I really wish that high school Diana had this. Like I said, this came out when I was in college, so it wasn't too far out, but I think this would have been something that my friends and I would have really loved. The next book that I wished I had had in high school is Court of Fives by Kate Elliott. So I had read some Kate Elliott in high school. I had read some Melanie Ron books, which are a whole different thing. And she had co-written a book with Kate Elliott and Jennifer Robinson called The Golden Key, which is a very interesting book. And so I was kind of familiar with Kate Elliott. I think I might have read The King's Dragon, or at least picked it up. I can't remember if I actually finished it in high school. So I was like tangentially aware of Kate Elliott in high school, in like middle school and high school. And then again, after I had graduated from college, I had read her, at the time, most recent adult fantasy series, the Spirit Walker trilogy, and I absolutely adore that series. If you have seen my dream adaptations video, that is one of my dream adaptations. I think it would work amazingly well as a TV show. But this is Kate Elliott's so far only YA series, and it is a Little Woman reinterpretation. It's Little Woman meets American Ninja Warriors set in Ptolemaic Egypt, and it discusses themes like sisterhood. It discusses being mixed race. It discusses finding your place in the world and colonialism, and there are just so many great things. And so, as I had mentioned earlier, I was raised on, I read so much Tamara Pierce. I read a lot of adult novels that centered very active female protagonists in fantasy settings because I didn't have as many options as folks do now. And I think this is something that I really would have enjoyed in high school. I love the sister dynamics in these books. I really enjoy Jess as a main character. She's just she's very active. She is trying to, like I said, trying to figure out her place in the world, trying to figure out where she belongs, because when it starts, she doesn't really belong to either world, and so trying to figure out what's going on with that. I also, again, love the political themes in this. So yeah, this is something I definitely would have enjoyed in high school, and again, I wish I could send this back to past me. The next book that I wish I could have had in high school is still fantasy, but it's different. So the previous two books I would classify more as like, they're secondary world fantasy, but this one, When the Moon Was Ours by Anne-Marie McLemore, is a magical realism book. So this centers on Miel, who can grow roses from her wrists, and Sam, who is a trans boy who is figuring out his identity, and he paints moons, and they're dealing with these sisters who want to claim what Miel and Sam have. And it's this beautiful, beautiful story about growing up, learning who you are, secrets, and it's so good. I adore this book so much. So when I was in high school, I was reading some magical realism books, and this is very much in that vein. And I think this is something that I, again, would have enjoyed because it's drawn there. I can definitely see a line between more like the canon of magical realism to what this book is. And I think I would have loved the queer themes. I would have loved the Latinx representation, especially in the United States. I love McLemore's writing. They just have like this beautiful language. And this is something where when I read it when I was in grad school, I felt something that I don't always feel with books. And it was just like this recognition and relationship. And this is something I think would have been very important to me had it been published when I was younger. One thing that I definitely has continued from high school today is my love of Star Wars. You can see my Star Wars shelf behind me. But when I was growing up, there wasn't much in the way of Star Wars YA. There was the Young Jedi Knight series, which was about Han and Leia's kids, Jason and Jaina. There was the Junior Jedi Knights book, which is about their son Anakin. But by the time I was in high school, it was mostly adult books, and it was towards the end of the Legends, or it was like mid to late Legends era. And I enjoyed parts of it, but there were other parts I didn't enjoy. So one book that has been published recently that I would have been over the moon about is Star Wars Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston. So she has multiple books centered around Padme. This is the one that's set around the Phantom Menace. She also has Queen's Shadow, which is set several years later. So it's Padme as she's becoming a senator, and that was actually published first. And then Queen's Hope is being published later this year, which is about Padme in the early days of the Clone Wars. But this is the book I think I would have loved most I would have enjoyed most as a high school student, because I really loved Padme as a character. I loved the handmaidens. I was 15 or almost around 15 when Revenge of the Sith came out, and just, oh man, I do love the prequels a lot. Like, I recognize that they have flaws, but I don't care. So this is something I would have absolutely adored, even if it was published when I was younger than high school. I would have read this. I read the secret Padme journal diary thing that they published in the lead up to the Phantom Menace, or after the Phantom Menace. So this would have been my jam. So this book, or at least I've been talking about this and I haven't talked about what the book is covering. So this book is set before and during the Phantom Menace. It covers Padme and her handmaidens coming together. It develops the handmaidens' personalities, and it shows their relationships developing not only with themselves, but other people in Padme's retinue. And it goes into what happened during the occupation of Naboo for the handmaidens who were left behind, as well as the citizens of the planet. And so you get some politics, you get character work, you get the girl sneaking out to go to a boy band concert. It's great. So yeah, I'm so glad that this exists now. And again, I wish I could send it back to high school me. The last book is a relatively recent read, but again, I think it's something that would have meant a lot to me growing up, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. So this is a YA novel centering on a young trans brujo called Yadriel, who is trying to prove himself in his traditional Latinx family, and to do that he needs to summon a spirit, and he tries to summon the spirit of his recently murdered cousin, and ends up summoning the spirit of a boy who goes to his high school, Julian. And Julian and his cousin Maritza have to discover what happened and try and figure out who killed Miguel, who killed Julian, and also stop whatever is going on. So I read this year for the 24-hour trans readathon and just absolutely loved it. I did have like a few minor quibbles, but for the most part, this is one of the best books that I read this year. And I really love the depiction of the culture. One thing I found I loved was that Thomas had this kind of Latin American inspired world building for his brujexes. He did such a good job with the characters. And again, this is something, just the queer rep, the Latinx rep, that would have meant so much to me growing up. So I'm so glad this exists now. I'm just over the moon that someone like Aiden Thomas is able to publish books like this, and I really hope we get more like it in the future. So that is a very rambly video talking about 5 books that I wish I'd had in high school. Yeah, this was kind of a spur of a moment thing, so maybe I'll do another round in the future. But yes, are there any books YA books that you've read recently that you wish you had had growing up? Do you have any comments about the ones I chose? Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.